All right. All right. How's everybody doing today? Thanks for joining me, everybody. As you know, the goal here is to kind of encourage healthy skepticism and as many people as we can reach out to. And the reason for this goal is connected to the fact that, society and me and everybody here and my children, we all make up a society of people who hold certain values and beliefs. And we feel that, our beliefs and values reflect the society we live in. So we want to have good methods and tools for coming to those beliefs and values. So we have a really good guest on tonight. One of the people I look up to in the SC community. This is Anthony Magnabosco. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, it's important, isn't it, to have better tools for our interactions and ultimately for society. So yeah, cool. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, no problem. I think you do a great job. You're doing a great work. You inspired me. I mean, I think, society is definitely made up of people that believe stuff. So we want to make sure we're all coming to, rational beliefs and we have the right tools at our disposal. And you're doing a great job at helping people to develop those,
Oh,
So
thanks.
I'll kind of get right into it, man. How long have you been doing SC altogether so far?
8 years now, something like that. I think I started about 2014, maybe December of 2013, technically, although it probably wasn't SE. I think I went out with my camera to the Alamo to interview people.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a few weeks later, which is then the start of 2014, I started interviewing people. So yeah, it's been a while.
How did you get into it? Like, how did you discover the method to begin with?
It started with a book. It's called Manual for Creating Atheists by Boghossian, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Boghossian. So I read that book and it appealed to me, because I wanted to, because I'm an atheist and I was arguing with theists. So he was suggesting that, hey, you don't have to argue with them. You could just talk to them and maybe even make more progress with them. So that was appealing to me. That's how I got started. And then I'd seen a few videos of people engaging with others. Oh, we got a guest. Hello. That's awesome. So I started engaging with other people let's see what I was doing. I started going out to just talk to people about religion. And then I started discovering the SE stuff. And then I was like, well, let me just merge the two. Nobody else is putting out videos or doing street epistemology. So let me try to do it. I actually recorded myself. I turned to my camera and said, yep, hey, this is Anthony. I'm going to go out and do some street epistemology today. And I put that video on my channel recently just to sort of show, because I thought, if this thing takes off, it might be noteworthy to record that. And here we are in 2021, this thing is blown up. It's huge. Well, it's not that big, but it's getting there.
It is.
We're heading in the right direction. Let me just put it that way.
That's the impression that I get because when I first, because I was a big junkie for the debates and the theist atheist discussion.
Same.
Katie and I have a really interesting background in religion. We used to be Jehovah's Witnesses for a long time, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Hardcore, man, really fundamentalist type of background and very against skepticism and against questioning. That was a real big no-no in our, which is the case in a lot of these sort of religions and cults and things of that nature. So now I've been out of it for a long time. I'm an old guy. So this was back when I was a young man and I've long since, and I became my process was getting out of it. I felt really resentful and angry that, these people are trying to stop me from actually questioning and, figuring this stuff out. And so I became the typical angry atheist, so to speak. And then, but then, you take different paths in life and you discover different things and you kind of chill and you become more, balanced about everything. But I still wanted to have this conversation with people, right? I would be at work and, religion was always a sensitive subject to me, basically because of my past and along with my family, people and I didn't know how to conversate with them about it because people tend to look at, well, you were a Jehovah's Witness. So come on, man. You can't like judge that against what I'm like a real Christian. I'm like, so they had this thing where you can't talk to me about it because you were just part of a cult and I'm a little bit superior. So I don't think
is that frustrating?
Yeah.
I got the same pushback when I would mention that I was a Catholic. When I first started going out and talking to the theists that were on the street preachers and things, they would ask, well, did you ever believe? And then I would say, yeah, I was a Catholic. And they just dismissed me. Well, that isn't the true religion. So if it's any consolation, I got the same response for not being, you're never up to the other person's standards. It seems you just weren't the right type of believer.
That's right. That's right.
And every religion is the wrong religion, but your own, and that's true for everybody.
Yeah, but it's frustrating too. Like it's maddening. Like, well, no, I put in the time. I believed it. I was really there, and then just to be dismissed because you weren't the same flavor of believer that they are, it's kind of dismissive, which kind of explains why we would be angry.
Mm-hmm.
When you get that kind of kind of pushback, it's like everything that I went through doesn't mean anything because I wasn't the religion that you're in now. So yeah, it could be a little upsetting.
Yeah, it took for me, and I think for Katie too. It took a little therapy to kind of get out of that process, like out of that mentality, because I had suffered from something we call scrupulosity. And that's when someone is so absorbed in their religious beliefs that they feel guilty about their thoughts, about what they may have said to someone, that God, there's this angry God watching you and he's just waiting for you to mess up and he's going to get sad. And if he gets sad, he's going to fucking kill you or something like that. And so this kind of stuff really creates trauma in someone's mind, and, so yeah, I dealt with that for a long time. So a lot of people think that, well, if you left it, you were never really a true Christian to begin with. So, but they have no idea how serious people like us took that kind of stuff and the process it took to get where we are today. So, but I found myself when it came to speaking, and I really do want to help people. Like, I try to think of myself as a good person. I don't want to just argue with people and show them you're wrong. And, it's not about that. It should be about how is this conversation going to be helpful? Because anyone can argue politics and religion just to get stress off their chest or prove someone wrong, or it's all ego. And that's what really debates and a lot of that stuff is about. It's all about ego. And I thought, I don't want to be that person. I want to be someone who's actually can have this interesting conversation and it be productive and progressive. And I didn't really know how to do that. I looked on YouTube for people and I saw guys like Ted the Atheist. He's great. Don't get me wrong. I love that guy. We were just watching his videos yesterday.
I met him in person a while back.
Oh, did you?
I think you did a lecture, didn't you?
I gave a lecture and he was in the audience and we ended up he asked a question, I think, and then we ended up talking. Yeah, an interesting fellow. Yeah, that those aggressive styles were out there back in the day. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything really. That was all you had, right? Maybe there was one or two videos where there was a pleasant conversation between a theist and an atheist that wasn't on the debate stage. There weren't a lot of videos out there. We definitely filled that niche.
Yeah, we really did. And, historically, I think around before 2010, a few years before that, you had the, what was it, the Four Horsemen with the new atheist movement, whatever that means. With Sam Harris and, Christopher Hitchens and not Darth Dawkins, but Richard Dawkins. And, and they were really pushing like this sort of militant sort of, anti-theism sort of movement.
They pushed it hard. But that push got my attention. So because I read The God Delusion and that was foundational for me. Back in probably 2010. When did it come out? 2011, 2010?
Something like that, yeah.
Maybe that's when I read it. So if somebody date checks me and shows that I'm wrong. But I remember reading it before I went out to do talks with people. So that was the push that I needed to do something. So in retrospect, but yeah, maybe they push too much. It's like this pendulum. Maybe they push too much and then this might be sort of an adjustment, what we're doing with SE. I don't know. Or just a different approach than that, perhaps might be a better way of putting it, not just SE.
Yeah, and a lot of people that I've spoken to, quite a bit of theists that I've worked with or spoken to, will say, well, they people that are kind of up on it, that understand SE and understand that they probably watch these videos too, these theists, and they're like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to do that street epistemology on me, aren't you? And they'll say, well,
that's so interesting to me that pushback. I see that frequently to this day. And
really,
yeah. Oh, like so as soon as you break out a belief scale or ask their level of confidence, or can you define that word even? Or hey, you're being too nice. Are you doing street epistemology? What the hell? Like,
yeah.
It's so baffling to me that's like a trigger for some people to like. I've even heard of people banning street epistemology from certain communities, like on Facebook and that type of stuff, where they don't want you to do street epistemology, which
they look at it like it's a form of dishonest dialogue, like this one preach, because I unfortunately I was in California, because I unfortunately I was in California, and
so your employer,
he was my employer, yeah, and they were like very Christian, fundamentalist Christians that ran that company in California, and they kind of figured out I was an unbeliever, and so of course they.
What was the giveaway?
Yeah, I don't know.
What was the giveaway?
Probably some of the books and videos I was watching at work. Like, oh, what are you watching?
Checking your browser history.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, we noticed you watch a lot of atheists video. What's going on with that, Mr. Williamson? So, yeah, and it became conversation at lunch and around the water cooler, and so I would try to do street epistemology, try to have the conversation, and they're like, street epistemology is based on a book that's called How to, a manual for creating atheists. So I mean, this is not an honest dialogue you're having. You're trying to create. You have an agenda.
I wonder if the title of that book was different, if we would not have that pushback. We might still have the pushback if the title of the book was different. Like, let's say he just called it Street Epistemology, and then we started having conversations, but it was about God and nothing else changed but the title of the book. My suspicion is it wouldn't make much of a difference.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Now, from what I understand, I spoke to Ty on this from Let's Chat, and he said that it probably has a lot to do with clickbait, so to speak. Selling books. It was a catchy title, a really catchy title, but I don't think it would have really mattered. But on the other hand, it could have easily been, a manual for creating skeptics, which probably would have been a little more honest and a little more, it would have gave us more ammunition on that particular question. But Ty, his advice on that, and I'll ask you the same thing. When you get that sort of pushback, which I guess is kind of rare about the book. I don't know how many people are familiar with Peter Boghossian's book, but he would say, just embrace it. Just say, it's
don't ignore, like, don't try to avoid it or blow it off. I would just say, yep, that's what the author who came up with this method titled his book, and that was our focus. And we have lots of videos to show that it's a very effective tool to use on those claims. We need to own it. In fact, we're writing a course, and I'm tasked with writing the module on what is street epistemology. And I'm so nervous about it because I don't want to misrepresent it or gloss over of the things that I think need to be covered too, like the origination of it. So we need to own it and be straightforward with it. But hopefully people will realize, and we have lots of examples these days of other topics, hopefully people will realize that it's not just for that. Yes, it can be used for that very effectively, but it shouldn't be limited to that. So other than just acknowledging it, admitting it, and saying, okay, but can you see the potential for exploring claims using this approach? Hopefully people will be charitable and allow us to move beyond that. Yeah. And if they don't, then I don't know what to say other than we're still moving forward with it.
Yeah, and like you said, it may not be super duper popular as we would like, But the fact is,
It's getting there.
blown up. It has blown up from its early beginnings in 2013, 2014.
Hell yeah, it has.
Yeah, and that's really exciting, and that's great. You know, I've even seen preachers like street evangelists, people like that want to use street epistemology for the wrong reason. They want to push an agenda.
Yeah, I get messages from people say like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to go out and do street epistemology for my religion." And I say, "Good. Send me the link because I want to see how you do it." And I don't think I've seen one example. Nobody's ever written me back to say, "Well, here's the link to the video where I did." Maybe once. But it was pretty evident when I saw maybe one or two people now over the last couple of years where I've seen that. Have you've watched a few of them yourself? What's your sense? I'm curious.
They're still leading you. You know, they end up leading you, and they try to they try to, you know, come up with some of the same little techniques, like, what's your confidence that atheism is true? And then they don't ever go into the trouble of defining words. They never go through the trouble of asking, what do you mean by when you say this word or that? Like, what's your
But you know what? I wouldn't be too hard on them. At least they're trying, or at least they're purporting to try. But listen, if they took this course that we're coming up with, or if they really like legitimately tried to do SE, I think it would be great. They can define words. They can repeat back all the things that you see in the SE videos. I'd love to see them do that. But at some point, they stop asking and they start telling.
That's right.
Right? And that's where the line, there's some line there.
Yeah.
And you can still do that. I can still engage in a theist using street epistemology. And then if they want to, like, I'll even volunteer my position sometimes, or if they ask me, I'll tell them now. And so I'm okay doing that. But there seems to be that it's more obvious or something that's their agenda.
They have an agenda, exactly. You know, and
although we have agendas too, like I want to help a person think on their views, maybe help them realize that they don't have good reasons or methods, and maybe lower their confidence in their claim. Right?
Perfect. Right.
But I will say that for any claim that you make, it's not just for theism.
Yeah. Like, you know, I asked Ty a question. I'll ask you, like, is there a such thing as being too skeptical? Like, there's this thing called hyper-skepticism. You know, people
sometimes
start doubting
they become
COVID-19 or
I've seen you can slip from skepticism into cynicism. What I've noticed though is that it's the opposite. We're not being as skeptical as we should be. Like I even see it on the atheist side. You know, they'll watch a couple examples of SE and say, "Oh, I know what's going on. They're doing this," or they see one example of something they don't like the Tic Tac test or taking a bottle of water, right? And they think, "Oh, this is something everyone in SE does." It's like, how? That's not skepticism, if you ask me. Like we need to be a little bit more charitable with what we're seeing because we're still figuring things out.
Well, yeah, and then, you know, a lot of the folks in the atheist community have an agenda, and that's fine. And their agenda is for people to stop being religious, right? And think more critically and everything like that. So when I first came on the show and started this show, I interviewed an ex-atheist who, you know, converted over to Islam, right? And he had a lot of blowback from the atheist community. And a lot of people, you know, and I spoke to a lot of folks in these groups that I'm part of too, and letting them know I was going to have, you know, him on and stuff like that. And a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to tune in. I can't wait to see this one." You know, because they kind of know me as a debater. Like I'm into these debates and I do that kind of stuff too. But, you know, I wanted to be kind of clear that, you know, this is not about debating. This is about examining epistemology. And so went through the show, and you can watch it. I mean, it was just basic questions and things like that, SE sort of questions. And at the end, a lot of people expressed like, you know, you were too easy on them. You didn't really press them. You didn't push back on a lot of that stuff. Like, you asked some good questions, but you didn't challenge him and show him he's wrong, or whatever the case is. It's like, I don't think a lot of people understand in the atheist community what SE is, and you're right. Some people just don't get it, or don't like some parts of it. People, which comes to another question that I had, like, is there a particular way that SE should be done, or do people have their own style, and you think that's better to develop your own style? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at videos and get a sense of how the conversations can typically go, but my advice is to, definitely find your own style, but also maybe be a little bit charitable with the styles that you see out there. So you may see, like I've seen some people, they talk for 9 hours on a topic, and maybe they're not making any progress, but if that's what you're comfortable with, if that's what you need to get comfortable talking with people, then do that. So I think we need to be a little bit nicer or forgiving of styles that necessarily don't appeal to us. But if it's helpful for the practitioner and getting them comfortable, the other stuff will follow. So I don't have a problem spending 2 hours taking, like, maybe the approach that you did with this person. I didn't watch the video, but that's healthy. That helps build your own confidence when you're having these talks. And it could be counterproductive, I think, to give people negative feedback that you didn't like their style, because they may just stop at that point. So I would encourage them. You can point out things maybe that you don't like, but try to do it in a constructive way.
Yeah. See, this is the thing I wanted to ask you too, because, like, I'll be 100% honest with you on this right now.
Please do.
I find debating a whole lot easier for me than I do SE. Like, I
Really?
like SE as I love SE. Like, I think it's more.
See, I think debating is more stressful because you need to know your arguments, and you need to be offering evidence to back up your position. So, like with SE, I don't have to bring anything other than, like, an open mind and ask a lot of questions. So that's interesting that you go the opposite way.
Yeah,
I'll
tell you
that.
why.
I find it a lot easier just going down the epistemological route instead of the debating route.
Yeah. And then, like, maybe they're at a point where they're more reflective and open and ready for evidence. Then maybe I'll hand them over to you, Scott, so you can give them those facts, So, like, we need to be more open and accepting to the different types that are out there, and not just shit on SE because we didn't like a video that we watched, or that scale's so trite and played out. Like, no, there's some value to it. Why are you shutting it down? Maybe you don't like it, but let the other people do that, and then you can catch them on the other end.
You see, when I saw your videos, when I first started discovering this, right, I thought, wow, this is really cool, and it's so easy. Like, I can do this, and I thought, I think maybe I set myself up because I thought, this looks so easy. But then when you get in that dynamic situation where things change and people aren't really going by the rules that you want to go by, they kind of go off a tangent. And for me, I just want to, one thing that you have to have is a skill of stepping out of yourself to say, hey, this isn't about me. This is about this person. And I don't need to be, And for me, that was a challenge at first. Now I can kind of do that now, but then I have a hard time controlling the conversation, which kind of brings me
to
the other thing.
Controlling the conversation. See, that's the mindset. That's probably one of the biggest barriers there, is that you shouldn't think of it as controlling the conversation. Like, of course you want to set some boundaries, I guess, right? Like, so they're not insulting you or hitting you or abusing you, or, there's a certain level of consent in there, but, like, just kind of go where they take you. They have the boundaries for their belief system. And if you can train yourself to be flexible enough to go where they take you, then all that other stuff just kind of falls away.
Exactly. That's how I guess I need to do more practice on that, because it's so easy to get sucked into these rabbit holes with people, and you start reacting to everything they're throwing out. Like, you could like, I have a video here. If you want, I can share it. It's with like I was mentioning earlier before the show with Caleb. Real quick part. If I can share that, and I'll show you. You handle this excellently, but it's a good example of what people can do.
better.
Oh, I know you can. I know we were talking about that too, but I think you did really good.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think it was really interesting because it kind of shows a real life situation that we definitely go through. So
that was a train wreck. But yeah, let's how much are you going to show with this thing?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Not too much.
I'll brace myself.
And I have it queued up. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you hear it okay? Or?
There's no sound coming through. You might have to.
Yeah. There's no. Sorry, I gave a thumbs up. I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I see it.
Let me back it up. There we go.
Here, I can dub it in.
I've also
so, how confident are you that this is true?
Can you hear it okay?
I don't hear it, but if it's going out.
No sound coming through.
Oh, okay. Well, that didn't work out.
I can give a sort of a recap.
Yeah, let's just do a recap. Basically, let me stop sharing the screen. And basically, you were asking him what would it take to kind of change his marker. So he had like certain markers set up, or you were asking him, do you have markers that would lower your confidence? Like, and he had mentioned right?
Yes,
and he was like, right. Yeah. And you were like, so if you saw he was like, yeah, but the contradictions have to be in the Bible. And you're like, fine, that's fine. I would agree with you even that the contradiction should probably come from the source that we're talking about, obviously. So
yeah,
it's like, right. So you're like, so if we can find contradictions, are you telling me that would lower your confidence? And I'm not saying there is any contradictions. I'm just saying, if
and what did you say?
What's
the contradiction? What's the contradiction? He probably said that twice.
I talked to a Muslim, and he showed me contradictions, and then I showed him how it wasn't a contradiction. And so far, no one has been able to show me contradictions. This is what I'm trying to tell you, Anthony. When you start looking at the Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior, you're going to find out that there is no contradictions, and that God will open your eyes. And he goes into this whole preaching mode. And you were like, and then he starts bringing these other things up, and you're like, no, let's get back. Let's rewind the tape. Let's go back. We were just talking about one thing.
Well, and now see, we want to isolate the biggest reason that's propping it up. And if he surfaced the lack of contradictions as a justification for thinking that his holy book is true and his God is real, then I want to explore that. So I think I wanted a commitment from him to say, okay, if I just, because of course we can find contradictions, but if they don't meet his standard, it would be a waste of time to provide those to him.
Right.
And that was the thing that I was trying to convey. And I probably should have just laid it out. Like, maybe I was being a little too cryptic about why I wanted it. I probably should have just explained it that way. But if you look at the comments in the video, they're like, why didn't you just give him the contradictions? And here's these links.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm trying something different here. But we ended up in all fairness to that guy, we ended up meeting about 3 years ago. I released the video maybe a year ago. It took me a while to just to get the motivation to edit it because it was a really long talk. And he was just a completely different person. It was a much more calm, relaxed, quiet dialogue where we both expressed respect for each other for taking the time to have that exchange.
Yeah, he was like, I was such a jerk looking back at it. I felt like, wow, like he was, so let's do it again. Let's just, I won't do my thing. He was really chill. There was like a totally, He was. In fact, the SE comes in. That's where the tool works, man.
The tool, yeah. And I was trying to do the tool, but he wasn't making it very easy for me. And of course, I was a novice as well. And there was a lot of chaos going on, and there were probably 3 or 4 other street preachers standing around off camera, kind of eyeing the whole situation. They sent him over there. I found out later because they knew me, and that he was like a newbie. I think in their eyes, he was like the new guy. So like, it was sort of this initiation maybe in their eyes. So there was all these dynamics going on with that whole interaction that don't come through in the video.
One question awesome, I've always had for you, Anthony, is does it bother you when, when you're having these conversations with people, a lot of the time I hear them saying something along the lines of, well, my belief is true for me, just like your belief is true for you. Does that get to you after a while, hearing that over and over again?
It got to me until we sort of discovered a way to address it. because initially it was a stopping point. Like, oh, they think truth is an opinion and reasons don't even matter and evidence doesn't matter and testability doesn't matter. So then it was like, oh, shoot, now what do we do? And it was only through conversations with people where we were discussing it that we started developing tools, like going out with the box of candies and saying, okay, hold on a second. If two people disagree about the total number of pieces in here, how do we resolve the issue? But we did that through questions and respectful listening and everything that you see with SE. So we've managed to address that. So it's an infuriating pitfall, but once you recognize it, and you can look for things early on. Some people even lead with that. Hey, before we even get into your claim, how do you stand on this idea of truth? And there's this one guy, he's been uploading, he's going out and he's doing a survey. He sort of looked at SE videos and developed these questions, and it's been this iterative thing from the community, but he now asks a lot of questions about how people are thinking about their beliefs. How do they view the word truth, and what do they think about testing, and do they agree that people define words, things like this? It's like 26 wonderful questions. You can have a full-blown amazing conversation just talking about those things and not getting into any claim whatsoever. Yeah.
I like that. How it's so it was a learning curve for you.
It is, and we're still way early. Like we're on the very end of this curve. That I'm trying to let me think here. Trying to like, where are we at? We're probably like down here.
That's right. Yeah. There you go.
I'm looking at the screen while I'm trying to do this. It's not working.
Well, I'm dyslexic, so you're doing great.
Okay, then we got
cool. So I mean, like so along those lines, like say you're talking to a person who wants to talk about, I think God is true. That's what they want to conversate about. And I hear a lot of theists, for example, talk about their reason for accepting the claim that God is true is because evolution is not true or something can't come from nothing. How do you move forward in an SE conversation without getting bogged down into some controversy that's kind of off point? I kind of know the answer, and I'm kind of gotten a lot better. But just for our audience, how would you sort of deal with that answer?
This is why the confidence scale, which is often mocked, because it's sort of this. It's like an immediate tell that you're doing street epistemology in many cases, but it's so valuable. What I try to do is get a sense of how sure somebody is that what they think is true, and then identify the reasons that influence their confidence. And hopefully they agree that this reason contributes to my confidence. And if I discovered that it's a bad reason, it should decrease my confidence. Hopefully people are on board with that it only doesn't work in one way. And if it only works in one way, then I wouldn't move on from that point until we could explore how this is actually functioning, because maybe it does. But I can't imagine how that would work. But it's important to figure out what is contributing to their confidence, and then asking, once you've isolated it and you get an idea that it would actually decrease their confidence, then I would explore it. Okay, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, you have a high degree of confidence that your God is real because you're convinced that evolution is not true. Is that what you're saying? Yes, it is. If we discovered together that evolution is in fact true to your satisfaction, would you lower your confidence? Yes, I would. Now you've got the green light to pursue giving them evidence for evolution, but we don't do those steps. There's only I just outlined that in 2 minutes.
Right.
But if you don't do those things, you can be providing evidence to show that they're mistaken on something that doesn't contribute to their level of certainty.
Right.
And that's the waste of time. That's where the frustration sets in. Was that your answer, or do you have a variation?
That was the answer. I had a video that I was going to kind of explore, but I don't want to do that now because of the audio. But you had asked a guy, young guy, that very question, and he was like saying, well, I kind of believe in God because the alternative is evolution, and and you're like, well, if evolution,
intelligent design,
the intelligent design guy,
great, one of my favorite talks. His name's Jacob.
Yeah. Do you ever see some of these guys off camera after?
Yes.
Like I always hear about these emails. Like, what's up?
No. Usually, in this case, it was actually in person. I don't want to elaborate too much, but just keep watching the channel. Yeah.
So cool, man. I think that's great that that shows why SE is effective when, you can reconnect with these folks.
Hell yeah. When they come back and you can figure out, like, do they remember the talk? Do they have better reasons for thinking that it's true? Did they adjust their confidence? Do they have questions for me? Maybe they brought a friend. This is all really important feedback for us because we're developing this thing. Like I've said this before, we're kind of designing the parachute and we've leaped from the plane already. So we need this feedback to see, how is this going to land? How are we landing with this thing? Are we going to land? Are we still in the plane? We don't know it yet. Like this is really important feedback. So helping people, encouraging people to come back for more talks is really crucial to our growth.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think like I said before in the intro of the show, it's just invaluable to really give people the tools or help them develop the tools. I'm developing them too. I think we all are prone to bias, and we can easily be fooled into our beliefs and what we want to believe. And it's good to, under a lot of stress, I think someone brought this up to me today, that a lot of people in today's world are under a lot of stress. And so it's hard to really focus your executive functioning mind on exploring things like your epistemology. It's just you let the larger part of your brain, which is this reptilian emotional sort of a part of you, drive you, and it drives all your decisions and your behaviors. And there's a lot of data on that shows that people are really driven by emotions, and we're all like that. We're all human beings, right?
And it doesn't help that our society encourages certainty and discourages uncertainty. You're less of a person if you seem weak or wishy-washy on a conclusion. That's a mindset that has to change in this culture. So when you throw those evolutionary, perhaps, underpinnings of what's happening in our brains with our cultural overpinnings, the overlay of culture, where we incentivize certainty and confidence. We should speak with confidence and certainty and really fast when you should be doing the opposite.
So elaborate on that a little bit. That's sort of what you're talking about, and it's a view that I share. But make no mistake, you're sort of suggesting a certain philosophy, a philosophical position, right? Which is fine, and I think it's a philosophy I personally agree with. But how would you justify that particular philosophy that we shouldn't be so certain about our beliefs? Why is that? How did you come to know that?
Good question. I'm actually like staring at my ceiling thinking about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could really back it up, to be honest. Really. So, what's my level of confidence that that's the case? Maybe 60, 70%. And if you had asked me like my confidence before we launched into that, I'd probably say it was higher. So like, but I generally think there's value to that, where because my sense is that the more confident you are, perhaps the more closed-minded you are to new ideas. And we could probably have countless examples where people have been so closed-minded that they've missed the conclusion altogether. They're just wrong. But lately, however, I think I've been more open to the idea that you can be certain, you can have a high degree of confidence that you're right on something and still be open-minded to changing your view. So perhaps the relationship between those two things is not quite as sticky. Like you can probably still be sure, yet willing to move. But that might be that's probably a tough thing for me to answer on the fly, to be honest.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure I can point to a specific examples.
Maybe I'll ask you this way. Do you think that this whole idea of I know something, do you think that is knowing something, not knowing a blind spot, or would you think it's the other way around?
Well, to be clear, I think we know things, or I think we don't know things. So I don't think we really can know anything, but we think we know things. And That could be. Are you asking if that's a blind spot?
Yeah, it's like, is that a blind spot? No, thinking that you know things.
Thinking that you know things, I think, can be a blind spot. But hopefully, you're not so in love with your position that you are not willing to entertain other ideas. Mm-hmm. Like that sense of openness should probably come whether you're really, really uncertain or you're really, really certain. I think as long as you have openness and a willingness to honestly entertain other ideas, that's probably the healthiest position to be, even though you might be really confident that something's true.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I 100%. Guess, yeah, 100%. No, I actually believe that, though. I mean, I think that's one of the few things that I'm very, very certain about. One of the things that I'm certain about, and this goes into really philosophical discussion, is that, well, I exist. I know I exist. Otherwise I couldn't be talking about it. And the other thing is that, I infer things. I experience inference. And I think that I've experienced that the more I think I know certain things, the more I can have a blind spot. A lot of times.
Seems to be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and like you said, it's a good question. It's maybe it's not good even to be certain about that. Maybe we should be confident, but it's sort of paradoxical in a way. So
I guess the question might be is like, well, what are you getting out of it by saying I'm so sure that this is true to the point where I wouldn't entertain other ideas? Mm-hmm. Like that seems like more risky than saying I'm willing to entertain any question about any belief that I hold, regardless of how sure I am. That seems like the most honest and responsible, like epistemologically responsible position to be in.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of downsides. Like we mentioned these religions that we were a part of earlier. Mm-hmm. You're often taught that questioning and doubt is problematic, that you should never question. Like you need to be certain. This is all true. And if you doubt it, there's penalties for doing so. Mm-hmm. It's kind of twisted.
Yeah, it really is. And
it really is twisted. There's
no doubt in my mind about it.
No doubt.
I see I can see the effects in my own experience.
I could do this all night.
Yeah, we could just talk like that all night long, man. So, Katie, do you have any thoughts on that or questions other than that?
I think you're doing a fantastic job, so I wasn't. That's why I wasn't really getting involved. I'm loving listening to the conversation.
Just keep going. Just keep rolling.
But I thought it was a really good point that you made about that we think we know things. I like that because I was I've been watching a few of your streams recently, Anthony, and one of the things that people say a lot is well, I believe it to be true, so it's true.
Right. That's actually one of the questions on the survey, if I'm not mistaken, the aforementioned survey. I think we have a link to it now on the Street Epistemology website for people that are interested in looking into that. Yeah. Is it true? In fact, I listened to a really great conversation earlier today by the same person. Abstract Activist is his channel. Nathan Ferguson is his name. And he had this wonderful discussion where I think the person was saying, as long as I believe it to be the case, it's true. And he shared his view, which is nice to see in an SE video. And then he had this wonderful dialogue with this person where they were reflecting on it and making progress. It was awesome to see.
Uh-oh. Yep. There we go.
Oh, hey, you might get your chance, Borg Skeptic, to ask all your questions. Is Scott back? Yeah. Oh, I think he's back. Okay.
I think I'm back.
Are you back now, Scott?
Yeah, I don't want to hog the show. Yeah, I was just trying to be conscious of not taking over the show 100%. Like, let you get some words in edgewise.
It was just such a great conversation. I cracked open a beer and I was just sat back and was listening.
Really?
Cheers.
Ooh. There you go, man. Yeah, it's a lot of atheists take the very hard, strong position. Positive position of atheism. They'll say, I know there's no God. Yeah.
Oh,
they'll
gosh.
do that.
Yeah, see, this is why I think the belief scale is helpful. This could be useful because this discussion might be useful because I'm going to be on with Matt Dillahunty on his show, The Line, next week, next Wednesday, I think. So this is his bugaboo. This is his. Can I say that word? Is that a word you say? I don't know. Apologies if that's like a bad word or something. But that's his sort of nitpick thing. Like I don't know if he's still. We'll talk about that more than likely. But yeah, I think asking where a person is in terms of their certainty that something is true on that scale of confidence is really useful. And it also helps get a sense of like maybe who's making the claim here, which I think is kind of well, maybe I got ahead of myself here. Where were you going with that?
Oh, I was just going to say, even within the groups that I'm part of, I debate atheists, and a lot of the atheists have this strong, positive claim that there is no God. Like I would say, I'm more certain that the Christian God or the Abrahamic gods are not true, in my opinion. Like there's a lot of atheists that feel that way. I would say that maybe I'm, 99% true, certain that the Abrahamic God probably does not exist.
Do you think that you have a belief that that's the case? Or do you say that you lack a belief in God?
Yeah, it's a belief.
It's a belief. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a belief.
Yes. I hold a belief that there are no gods. And my reasoning for that is because all the evidence that I see for it is insufficient to justify the claim. That's my justification for it, is your lack of a justification. Good. Right. That's a relief. Yeah, because I see a lot of atheists maybe who push back on that and say, well, no, I lack the belief. Here's what I think. I think there's a confusion about the word belief in that instance. I think a lot of people think that when I say I believe something or that I'm holding a belief in something is that I'm saying that I know it to be the case, or I have a high degree of confidence that it's the case, or I think that it's true. But I can hold a belief that something is not true.
Which would make sense when the majority of theists say that because I believe it is true. It would make sense that they would then think that belief means that.
That's a good point. So yeah, if we're going off of the theistic definition of it, then I can understand why atheists might be reluctant to say that they believe that there's no God. Okay.
Yeah, they bought into that premise.
Well, and if they were theists beforehand, it makes sense why they might be willing to die on that hill because of it. So this gets back to why definitions are so important.
Absolutely. And it's so good because then you're not talking past each other. That's the whole idea is not to waste time and energy. You don't want to do stuff like that. That's
right.
That just spins your wheels and
figure out how they're using these words and go with their definitions while you're exploring their beliefs. It's very simple, but sometimes we fall in love with the meanings of words that we are used to, and we're not willing to budge on them. Yeah. That is a problem if you want to help the person that you're speaking with think about their belief tower.
Well, there's a lot of theists out here, and I've heard this is they claim that you believe in God too. You're just suppressing it.
Oh yeah, that's frustrating.
How do you deal with that one?
I usually punch them at that point. No.
Good deal. Good job.
No. That's funny. I don't think I've ever heard that answer when I've talked to people on the street. This is a online theistic claim.
Armchair philosophers.
So take that for what it's worth. Most people don't say that.
Yeah, right.
So, but what would I do if I encountered it? I guess I would explore how they became convinced that I know that it's the case. What else do you think I know that I'm unaware of?
Right. How long have you been a mind reader?
Yeah.
Are there any topics that you don't discuss that are off limits?
Not really.
With you? Not really.
No, the border or the barrier for what topic is on the table and off is my conversation partners. Or maybe I'm just unwilling to talk about it because I don't like the subject, because sometimes I get roped into the topics and then I find that like my position's maybe a little weak on it and I'm I don't want to talk about it, or maybe I talked about it a lot. But gotcha. No, I think pretty much every topic is on the table if they're willing to do it.
Right. Okay. Interesting, man. I really don't have that many more questions, for lined up for the show and all of that.
Okay.
So I don't want
to. Hey, when you get another list of questions, invite invite someone else on from the SE community, because there's a lot of people out there that are doing great stuff, and they need a voice.
Reed Nice Wonder wants to come on here in the next few weeks. Yeah, I want to talk to him too.
Yeah,
he's another one of my SE heroes.
Are you in the SE Discord? Because there's so many people in there who are quite active. And yeah, okay.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Absolutely.
How
long are we in, Katie?
Well, we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did have a question for the end. So is there any belief that someone or anything that anyone said to you on the street that you've had to just, when you've got back home, you've just had to just break out in absolute laughter?
There's been a few. I'm struggling to come up with a really a vivid example of it. A few. Like, some people will say that I had a dream, and in the dream I was speaking with my pet, and because this was a loved pet who meant a lot to me, and this dream was so vivid, that's great evidence for thinking that heaven is real and therefore God is real. So, like, little things like that, those come up. But for the most part, I have my and I'm not going out and doing this anymore, by the way, but I would come home, and on the drive home, I would be live streaming to the Discord server lately, and then I would be sort of debriefing and talking about those talks and sharing my thoughts. But then after that, I don't think about them again. I really don't give them much thought, because sometimes I'll have 20 conversations in one day, and I just found that it's not healthy to be perseverating on those things. So I don't really have a good memory when it comes to that type of stuff. Yeah. So, sorry.
There was one I was watching. We was talking about Ted the Atheist earlier. He released a video a couple of weeks back, and he was talking to a shop clerk, and they got into a conversation about God. And Ted was asking for some evidence, and this guy was like, "Yes, I have evidence. I have the perfect evidence. I've got loads of evidence, in fact." And Ted was like, "Well, can you give me some of the evidence?" "Oh, sorry, I'm not allowed to."
Oh, interesting. What was the claim? Was it God?
Yeah, God. Yeah, he was.
I'm not allowed to.
I'm not allowed to.
Okay,
You've got to find it out for yourself. That's what he said.
Oh, wow. Well, you can probably still obliquely question that without knowing what the reasons are, and just talk about it in broader terms, or use the survey like I mentioned before. Like, that might be a good individual to build a little trust and use broader questions and set the claim aside completely. And like, if this was just sort of a drive-by where sometimes he rides up on his bike, doesn't he? I don't know if he still does that.
Yeah, he's got.
And if it was one of those things where he zooms right in, he's got his camera going, and he's on, right? There's no building rapport. There's no that type of stuff. So sometimes you get cheeky answers like that just because of the way that you're conducting yourself. So I suspect that you can make a lot of progress with somebody like that if you just spend a little extra time with them, talked about football or something. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was him or somebody else, but I think somebody said that, well, we know everything was designed because, the watch, if you saw a watch on the beach, you'd see it was designed. So look at the trees, man. One of those
that's
things,
a common
right?
one. You get that a lot.
Yeah. And so I think Ted the Atheist or someone else I was watching, he said, well, how do you distinguish between, the design thing and the undesigned thing? Like, what is your point of reference? Right. And so they said, well, undesigned things, I think like cars and computers. Like, what?
Interesting. See, that's a response from somebody who hasn't given it a lot of thought. So while it might be funny to like, it's a silly response, but it's an indication that they haven't processed these types of things. So that might be an indication that you should probably wrap it up, but try to meet with them again.
Yeah.
They can think about it a little further.
Yeah, you might want to think about that a little more.
Yeah. They did clarify on it afterwards, didn't they? They went back and went, oh no, I meant, sorry, that those things are made by humans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was thinking.
Yeah, I was going to say that there
must.
Probably talking past each other a little bit as far as what they mean by made or created.
Yeah, created. Yeah, it was, and then too, he probably knew he didn't have a good answer, so
yeah,
he had to kind of like figure a creative way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But some people just don't want to be wrong, or they don't want to have good questions or challenges to their beliefs, and that's when you've got what they call a doxastically closed person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get a lot of guarded people, but you can still help them. Like, they may be guarded on just that one topic, but they're open to discuss all sorts of other things. They think the newspaper gets delivered to their porch every Sunday or something, or they think ghosts are real. There's probably other safer topics that you can explore with them and set aside the one that they're being so defensive about. Right. If they're willing. You can even say, like, I noticed that you're being really defensive about the God one. Would you mind if we shifted topics completely so that we can maybe explore that claim and start thinking a little bit more critically, perhaps, about these types of things, with the idea that maybe we'll be able to take a look at the God claim later? You can just lay it all out there. Definitely try that. Sometimes we get locked in, we're like, no, I need to talk to them about God. When they may not just be ready for that because they're so sure that they're right.
Exactly.
And they don't know you.
That's right. And they don't trust you. They don't know you. Yeah, all of that's.
Yeah, the human mind is so interesting how.
Because a lot of the things, I mean, we're talking like these big words like epistemology and, interlocutor, those are like big words, fancy words that, we've got simple words for that. Interview partner, or like Ty was saying,
go as simple as you possibly can. That's probably the easiest thing. It could be off-putting. In fact, I just uploaded a video today where the guy was saying that he introduced his wife to a podcast by Sam Harris where he was talking to Megan Phelps, and his wife hated it. And it was the dialectical style that Sam was using during it that was a big turnoff. So I think the simpler words that you can use, the better. I despise obscurantism. It's not helpful. Now, when you have a community that does a certain thing often, you're going to have specialization in the words that we use. Interlocutor is one of them. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with in-group language, but you should be cognizant of it so that you don't let it slip into your regular everyday conversations because it could be off-putting.
That's right. That's right. And that's the whole thing about communication and trying to help progress the conversation on. So it's really good to know some of these do's and don'ts. And like you said before, I think it depends on who your interview partner is,
Yes.
Try to read who they are,
Try to read who they are. In fact, one of the modules for the course that we're working on is called Building and Maintaining Rapport. And we cover a lot of the stuff. Building trust, being charitable in your responses, active listening, the words that you use, that type of stuff. And that module is already out there. In fact, we're looking for people to take it and give us feedback to see if you like it, because that is the basis that we're using to go through and do all the other modules. And I think we've only had like maybe 50 people take it and give us feedback, but we're planning focus groups and that type of thing. We want to get feedback on that one. But that's a really big part of SE, is that the building and maintaining of rapport. It's crucial to having an engaged, honest, and trusting conversation partner, because the questions are easy. It's all the stuff that we do socially that gets in the way of the progress usually.
Right. So that's kind of interesting. So what would be the most important, maybe the first and most foremost thing you'd want to cover to have a productive conversation? Like, what's the first thing? You're going to go out and you're going to do SC, and I'm going to talk to this person. What's the first thing I want to do?
The very first thing happens before you even go outside. Or, not, of course, like, let's be clear, you don't have to initiate talks outside too. Do you do it outside? Are you like an outdoor SE person, or do you just sort of wait? Curious.
No, I haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Okay. The biggest part the biggest part in my mind is ask yourself what you're hoping to achieve by doing it, and be honest with your motives. Like, what am I really hoping to achieve here? Who do I want to talk to? Okay, my goal is to go out and talk to Trump supporters and ask them why they think Trump still is the president of the United States. That's my goal, or that's my target, I guess. And my goal is to help them realize that they don't have good evidence for thinking that that's the case. Awesome. Right. Now go out and have your conversation and be willing to share that with your conversation partner too beforehand, in my view. I think there's nothing wrong with disclosing that.
Oh, absolutely. And what is the second thing, would you say? Like, because I guess what I'm getting to is like,
what do you want me to say?
I'm imagining, well, like I'm trying to lead.
Yeah, you're leading me. What's going?
A conversation.
What are you hoping I say here?
Yeah, I'm leading you right to it. So I was just thinking, like, because I think it's easy to miss it, and I know I miss it too. Is if I'm out talking to somebody, I'm meeting somebody. I think the first thing is kind of like, just like you said before, establish that rapport, like maybe like just certain questions. I don't know if there's like certain it's so easy for me to I was telling you before.
A great question is,
I'm so easy at
what keeps you busy? What do you do? Like, not necessarily what do you do. I like, what keeps you busy these days? That's a very open-ended question that could be really valuable for building trust and getting a sense of who they are and demonstrating that you're listening to them. And you could ask them 3 more questions about what they do in real life and what keeps them busy without interjecting what you do. Like, you are into football? So am I. Like, you could do that, and that could be useful, I suppose, if you're being sincere about it and you really are into football. But don't just say you're into football because they said it. Like, don't there's no need to be insincere when you do this. Just be as authentic and honest as
conversational.
Possible. Just be real. Be real.
Just be real.
And it's not easy to be real. I'm trying to be more real.
Especially in that situation. Because you've already got your mind made up.
You disagree on these big issues.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like, I don't want to be friends with this jerk. Like, he thinks that Trump is still the president or something, right? you gotta set all that shit aside.
Right. That's right. So those are the questions to keep in mind that I think are really helpful. I've seen a lot of, and I see you do this a lot. Like, you'll say, yeah, I see, do you hike here often? Like, I see you're doing your hike. Do you have a quick question for an interview? Wow. So do you hike here often? Are you here a lot? You're very
a genuine
cordial
question.
And kind of natural.
Yeah, because maybe they're new to the trail and they may say, no, I'm visiting from New York. I'm here to see my sister. She's sick in the hospital and I had a little bit of a break. Fantastic, right? You've got a lot to go with there.
I'm telling you, man, it seems like a very simple thing that you're talking about, like a very common sense, duh type of thing. But I'm telling you, I've tried to do SE, and those little things, those little points mean a lot.
They're crucial.
They go far, and they really screw you up. They can really screw you up.
But here's the interesting thing. We didn't, even the practitioners who've been doing this, including myself, for a long time, I don't think we were quite aware of the things that we were doing to facilitate the smoothness of a conversation until we started creating this course. Developing the course to teach people how to do SE with people who are familiar with writing courses and developing learning objectives and instructional design. These are things that we as SE practitioners really don't have any expertise in, at least the ones that are on our team. So this has been a learning curve for us, but that has been instrumental in helping us reflect on what we're doing when we're doing SE so that we can teach it. And this is what we're discovering. Like, it's way more than just asking questions and active listening. A lot of the things that we normally talk about in a workshop, there's a whole other dynamic that's going on here that we're trying to embed in the course.
Oh man, it's so easy to just come off like a robot, like just jump off somebody.
Don't set the scripts aside. Like, scripts are that's actually a common criticism that we get about SE, is that you're following a rote script.
Yep.
And rote scripts have their purpose. They could be really instrumental in getting people to entertain the idea of using the approach. And it could look a little robotic, but when you do it 20, 30, 40, 50 times, you forget about this. You forget about the steps, and you're just having a normal conversation, but you're still hitting the points. And it's just natural. It's natural. So you need to be forgiving with people when you pull up an SE video and you see it being robotic. Try to be charitable with what you're observing. And this is what's so frustrating about the critics of SE is that they see that and think, well, you're only doing that. Well, no, that's a stepping stone to getting to the point where it can be a natural conversation. So help us, be charitable, give that person feedback and encourage them when you notice that they did something. Maybe it was at the tail end of the conversation. It was that when they were saying goodbye and there was this really genuine moment. Point that stuff out to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so big. That's just huge. I mean, that goes along with anything that any sort of relationship you're trying to create. And that's what you're doing is in that little moment, in that little 5 minutes or whatever the timer says there, you're trying to create a relationship enough to have that kind of trust.
Well,
and the great thing is that there's a lot of buy-in.
Like, I don't know. I won't go so far as a relationship. Like, I don't want to have relationships with 30 strangers that I met on a date. Like maybe there might be one person where it stood out and they kept coming back and we became friends and then maybe had coffee and then we text every once in a while or something like that. That happens. But it is a good way to find and meet people if that's your thing.
What are you doing after this SC talk?
Hey,
yeah. But I guess I mean to say that you're just trying to develop a trusting conversation,
ideally, because if a person feels listened to and they have trust in what you're up to and what your objectives are, they're going to probably open up and be more revealing, which is helpful. But you don't have to, it's not a technique to get them to do that. It's just, that's the natural result if you approach it in that way.
That's right. Do you have any questions, Katie? Because I think we're running right up to the end here. Cool. Well, I thank you everybody for joining us, man. This has been great. I've always wanted to meet you, wanted to talk to you. Like I said, I'll probably be in your area here in a few months on a little vacation. And if I can connect with you, if that's possible, that'd be great, man. I'd buy you dinner, buy you a drink, just for coming on and
go get some lunch or something.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm all for it, man. Maybe you can tell me what's going on down in San Antonio that's fun to do.
That might be hard to do.
It might be kind of hard to do, huh?
I stay in my house all day long on my computer. I don't know what you're talking about.
So that's what I'm going to do, huh? I'm just kidding.
You see my studio, I guess.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, man. We've had a great conversation, and hopefully it's really informative for everybody that's interested in having these sort of conversations, really productive conversations with folks. So I appreciate you coming through, man. Yes, sir.
And thanks for doing the show. This is really cool. We need more people doing this.
Yep. I will keep it up, my man.
Okay. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you guys later.